This is a very interesting question. People in marketing typically are looking at things like branding and dealing with the end customer. And in this case, when we're looking at business-to-business markets, either you are selling your product as a component into an OEM, or maybe you're selling your products through a channel, so the channel is a business-to-business customer. So it's not so much about, getting the price straight or this or that. It is really understanding what are the needs of your customer. Your job is to help your customer make money, or your job is to help your customer design a better product. Your job is to help them improve the business model. So the idea is that for a business customer, you have to help create value for your customer. And that is what is very often misunderstood, is that you have to compete on price. And as a business buyer, it is my job to make sure that the same products are outsourced from 3 different people, so I can make them compete against each other. But as a vendor in the business context, my job is to provide differentiation, and the differentiation may come from services. It may not come from the product at all. But to provide the kinds of services that will make the customer uniquely dependent on me, so I can escape the price competition issue. In my mind, if you have to compete on price, and I'll emphasize the word have to, what you've done is you already admitted defeat, that you can't compete on the value that you're creating. So even in the retailing context, there's a company called Balaji. They make wafers, they make potato chips. They've taken share away from Pepsi's Frito-Lay unit. In that area, in whatever state that they've operated in, they've taken share away. It isn't so much on marketing and branding and building, and it's what they have done in the B2B alliances. So their customers, the B2B customers, are the mom and pop stores, the Kirana stores. And what these guys do is they deliver pretty much every day. That helps minimize the cost that is needed. And the way they deliver it, they actually, they already put it in a platform, so it acts as an advertising, for their product. And the only message really is that relative to the competition, you get 25% more for the same price. And that's for the consumer. But for the mom and pop, the Kirana store customers, they're helping them make money by pretty much delivering every day. So the flexibility and the delivery time is a better competitive tool than a price cut. Well, stay in stock. One is that the minimization of lost sales, because it's being replaced every day. But the second thing that is happening is for the Kirana store, but even for the large customers, it could be a Walmart. For the large customers, when they talk about return on investment, it is really return on inventory. It's the return on the stock that they hold. So if you're delivering on a 2-week cycle, and if you can reduce it to a 1-week cycle, basically what you have done is you have reduced the inventory requirement by 50%. Now, because return on inventory is in the denominator, if they were getting a 5% return, now they can get a 10% return. So it's really a multiplier effect. So the value of time is actually very critical out here, because it reflects the impact on the supply chain, it reflects the working capital requirement, and it certainly impacts the return on inventory or return on investment. Well, it's really creating, in effect, value for each other. And so one of the things we as academics and the people involved in the center will benefit from is getting a richer understanding of what the issues really are, and how can we go about addressing them. So the issue may be related to, let's say, uncertainty of delivery, and it may not be a pricing issue at all. So, but if we understand it's really related to uncertainty in delivery, then we can figure out what are the mechanisms in the supply chain that could be used to manage that. So I call it sometimes, we in academia like to talk about theory-inspired practice, but what is sometimes needed is problem or use or practice-inspired theory. How can we get our thinking caps on so that it is defined by the problems that industry is facing? Now, one thing that we have in academia is we have time to reflect. So the same data, we'll look at it, inside out, upside down, downside up, and we will we'll torture the data and learn something out of it. People in industry don't have that time. So they will sort of take the first cut and kind of run with it. So from industry, we learn the problem, and what industry learns from it is using their own data, we're able to provide them better insights. So our job is not to take industry, what I would typically be called as best practices. So if I talk to 10 companies, I can come up with an average best practice. But if we are going to be really contributing, our job is to tell them what should be the practices. Not what they are, but what they should be. So perhaps a better word might be next practices, what you should do. Well, I would emphasize, I would also like to emphasize the Center for Business Markets. The real issue is that you have to understand the context. What works for Amazon in the US is not going to work for Amazon in India. And we've seen that happen. In the US, you can, for example, rely on delivery systems, whether it is FedEx or DHL, etc. When you come to India, the shipment from Mumbai to Delhi can take 1 day. It can also take a week. And therefore, what may need to be done in India is that your logistics systems may need to have regional or local distribution rather than 2 or 3 national centers. Now, what that is going to do is going to destroy your economies of scale. But then what is the benefit? The flip side of the benefit is that when the customer order comes in and you've got a warehouse nearby, you can deliver on the motorcycle the same day. So what you're now doing is you've taken what was a problem and you've made a virtue out of it. Also, the Flipkarts and Amazons of the world can use the Kirana stores as the last mile connect. And so the Kirana stores, rather than being a competitor, now become a complementer. So these are some of the things that are being learned, and that insight is actually being exported out of India to the distribution systems in countries like Mexico and Brazil.